Antitypical Elijah. Who is he? Why is it so important to know who Antitypical Elijah is? In General Conference Special page 8 it reads, "Nevertheless, one's only safety will be in the teaching of Elijah, for there will be no other voice of timely truth and authority to whom one may turn. Any others will lead their victims blindfolded into perdition." We do not want to be led blindfolded into perdition, brothers and sisters. The Bible says in Malachi 4 verses 5 and 6, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." So the question is, who is this Elijah prophesied in the book of Malachi? Well, the Rod says in Answer Book 1 page 78-79, "Nevertheless, the words of Malachi make plain that the messenger of the covenant is, in the strictest sense, Elijah the prophet, Malachi 3 1-5, 4-5, the last messenger, who prepares the way of the Lord." See Testimonies to Ministers, page 475. In relation to Malachi 3:1 and Malachi 4-5 along with Testimonies to Ministers page 475. The Jezreel letter number 9 page 1 says, there are two main points to note in these quotations. 1, that the message and messenger here mentioned are the very last. 2, that they are to restore all things. 3, that there is danger for some to make fools of themselves, by daring to tell him how to teach his message, assuming to take God's place. So, based on the quotations shown thus far, we see that Antitypical Elijah has a message, and the message he brings will be the very last, as well as that they are to restore all things. Anyone else attempting to bring a message other than the one Antitypical Elijah brings would be a rank impostor, because the message he brings is the very last. Very important points to always remember. So since we know that Antitypical Elijah has a message, the next question is, what is the name of the message that he brought? Let us read a statement in volume 1 of the Symbolic Code number 9 page 9 to find out. It reads, "Moreover, as the shepherd's rod is the Elijah message, TM 475. Here this statement is showing us that the shepherd's rod message is the Elijah message, and also pay close attention that it links the Elijah message to Testimony to Ministers page 475, which is in bracket, showing us that this is the Elijah that Sis Ellen G. White prophesied about. So the next logical question is, who is the author of the shepherd rod message? When we read volume 1 of the Symbolic Code number 11/12 page 5, it tells us who the author of the shepherd's rod message is. It reads, "It was our privilege a few weeks ago to attend a service conducted by a field secretary of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists in one of our city churches, at the close of which, Brother Hutef, the author of the shepherd rod, who was also in attendance, was asking the speaker of the evening a question on some point discussed from the pulpit in opposition to the teachings of the rod. We can see here that Brother Victor Hutef, who is Antitypical Elijah, is the author of the shepherd's rod." The Answer Book 3 page 22-23 further adds that, "Somebody is to come in the spirit and power of Elijah, and when he appears, men may say, 'You do not interpret the scriptures in the proper way.'" Testimonies to Ministers, pages 475, 476. In all the annals of church history since the Exodus movement, the rod message is the only one which calls for just such a movement, and which exactly fits the type. We see that the rod message is the only message in church history that fits the type. We are so grateful and privileged to be a part of this wonderful message at this time, brethren. Another identifying mark of Antitypical Elijah is that he will be an interpreter of the scriptures. The Rod says in the General Conference Special page 7 and 8, "Thus will be the devil's deal while the day of God is approaching, and while Elijah is making the announcement of it as the scroll unrolls and while the prophecies concerning the day of God are being unsealed. His work and his interpretation of the prophecies for the great day will identify him as the promised Elijah the prophet. Testimonies to Ministers, page 475, and this will enrage the devil as never before. We know that Brother Victor Hutaf is the one whom God inspired to bring to us the message of the shepherd's rod, which interpreted the prophecies concerning the great and dreadful day of the Lord. In the General Conference Special page 34 it says, "Since God is not experimenting, and since he means just what he says, there should be no doubt in your minds that the scriptures concerning antitypical Elijah, he who is to awaken the church and to warn the Laodiceans of the great and the dreadful day of the Lord, make sure that he is one person. Of a surety, he is to have faithful helpers, but according to the prophet Nahum he will greatly make use of the printing press and will scatter his message by the postage stamp everywhere, as the leaves of autumn. He will not care what is done with his publications, but will make sure that they find their way into all hands, laps, pockets, yards or wastebaskets throughout Laodicea." There are several points in this quotation that are crucial in identifying antitypical Elijah. Point 1. He is only one person, not 2, 3, or 4. The same one man who nourishes the 2 sheep and the young cow. Point 2. He will make use of the printing press. In other words, he will use a printing press to print his message. Point 3. He will scatter his message by the postage stamp everywhere as the leaves of autumn. Point 4. It also says his publication, indicating that the publications belong to him. He is the author. So, brethren, to reiterate, the message of the shepherd's rod is the antitypical Elijah message, and it has already arrived. Let us also remember that Elijah begins the work of restoration, as stated on page 8 of Timely Greetings Volume 2 number 3. Elijah shall indeed come first and restore all things. And the message of the shepherd's rod completes the restoration that antitypical Elijah started. According to pages 8 to 9 of Timely Greetings Volume 2 number 31, which reads, "The message of Elijah that restores all things is indeed in addition to the third angel's message, and it shall certainly swell into a loud cry. It shall gather God's people from the 4 corners of the earth." The shepherd's rod message is also the final message of mercy to the church and the world, which is an important point to remember. We read on page 67 of Tract 9 that, "When the time of the tares the children of the wicked one," Matthew 13:18, "is come to its full, then will commence the harvest, and it will bring the end of this world." Matthew 13:30, 40. Taking place in the end of the world, it perforce is a gathering of the people by Elijah's message, the last heaven-sent proclamation of the gospel, which is preached first to the church just before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, Malachi 4-5, and then to all the world during that long expected day. So in conclusion, Brother Victor Hutef is antitypical Elijah, and the message he brought was the shepherd's rod message, which is the final message of mercy to the church and the world. May we all give heed to the message of the shepherd's rod.